As a beginner gardener, I'd often come across the various benefits of companion planting. Some gardeners swear by planting French marigolds everywhere to ward off pests, while others advocate for specific crop combinations like the Three Sisters. Online advice was a mixed bag with endless vegetable garden companion lists and conflicting recommendation. This podcast series actually evolved from this confusion. Through this 3-part series, my goal is for you to be able to create a personalized list of companion plants that fit your garden and unique requirements. Welcome to the Garden Things with Friends podcast. We're here to show that building a thriving garden is possible for everyone, even those with busy schedules and long to-do lists. I'm Ashley, your host, and 2 years ago, I turned my garden dreams into reality in my suburban backyard. Through trial and error over the next 2 seasons, I've created a thriving garden that I absolutely love. My goal is to inspire you to create your dream garden too. So let's grow together. So my first encounter with companion planting involved a rabbit fiasco. Last year, shortly after planting my garden, I lost nearly all of my newly planted seedlings within days. The culprit, rabbits. I was determined to save my crops. So I dived into pest control strategies. I bought some very expensive solutions that did not work, and I found that companion planting was the game changer I needed to learn more about. It not only tackled the rabbit issue, but also enhanced my garden in ways I hadn't imagined. So let's start with the definition. Companion planting is a type of gardening that allows you to plan your garden to maximize plant benefits in the space you have. In simpler terms, it's planting 2 crops near each other for benefit. This could be a single-sided benefit or a mutual benefit. Companion planted is rooted in both anecdotal evidence and scientific evidence, and provides organic gardeners with the easiest and best chance of pest prevention and management in their garden spaces. Now, one common question that comes up with companion planting gardening is whether or not the plants have to be planted right next to each other. And the short answer is no. Companion plants can be plants that share the same soil and are planted right next to each other, but it also includes how you lay up your raised bed or planting trap crops in the same garden but on opposite ends of the space. Ultimately, companion planting is about maximizing your space and the benefits of each plant to enjoy bountiful harvest in your vegetable garden. Now, I want to note that companion planting doesn't just involve good companions that can go near each other, but also enemy plants that should be kept apart. So one traditional pairing to avoid is onions and legumes like beans or peas. Plants in the onion family release substances that can hinder pea growth. Another common enemy pairing is tomatoes and cabbages. These 2 plants are both heavy feeders, so they can deplete the nutrients in your soil very quickly. Additionally, they are both subject to similar diseases, so planting them near each other could be detrimental to both. So, what are the benefits of companion planting? Exploring companion planting can feel overwhelming when faced with long lists of plant pairings. The trick is not feeling pressure to grow every recommended plant. You don't have to do everything to experience the benefits. We companion plant to utilize properties of one plant to benefit another. By pinpointing advantages that matter most in your garden and prioritizing them over others, we can easily use companion planting in our gardens without getting overwhelmed. So here are a few of the benefits of companion planting. It's going to help with attracting beneficial insects like honeybees for pollination. It helps with repelling or trapping pests. Some crops are sacrificed as trap crops to attract beneficial insects such as the parasitoid wasp. Companion plants help with disease control. And this is basically in avoiding planting certain crops near one another to decrease the spread of disease. It's going to enhance soil fertility. Planting beans can help improve the soil quality by adding nitrogen, and planting cover crops like radishes can help break up hard, compacted soils. Companion plants help you to save space. By interplanting short and tall crops or using stalky crops like corn and sunflowers as trellis for pole beans, you can plant more things in your space. It helps with weed suppression. Some crops that are creeping crops can help cover the soil and decrease weed seed contact with soil and thus weed germination. Companion planting can help with adapting the physical environment. Taller crops can shade more heat-sensitive crops and extend your harvest. Now together, these perks help to create a chemical-free, nature-loving growing space. By using plants and nature's goodness, we can fight off pests and diseases naturally without reaching for chemicals. So how do we practically use companion planting? As a beginner gardener, understanding companion planting may seem confusing. So let's simplify it by using a 3-step method that really helped me as I learned companion planting. Basically, for every main crop you grow, you'll choose a flower and an herb to grow alongside it. And this flower and herb are going to have 2 main functions we're focusing on, which are to attract beneficial insects and deter pests. Now, these are 2 of the main companion planting benefits most beginner gardeners will want to pay attention to. Let's look at an example from my garden for how this would look. I grow in both containers and raised beds in my garden. One of the container crops I like to grow are patio tomatoes. Now, tomatoes have a host of challenges from pests like flea beetles, hornworms, slugs, and snails. To combat these threats, I plant marigolds, onions and chives, and basil in the same container. The marigolds will act as a trap crop and draw in pollinators and predatory insects, while basil functions as pest repellent, and it also attracts pollinators when it's in bloom. Chives and onions play a crucial role in discouraging many common pests. Now, I want to quickly run through a few pairings of good companions for 5 of the most pest-riddled and common garden vegetables. And if you head to the accompanying blog post, I've added a free printable companion planting chart for your use in the garden, as well as information on most crops. But for this episode, I want to run through a few of the common pairings of main crops, as well as list some of the common herbs and flowers that can be used. In the next episode, we'll discuss in more detail the herbs and flowers of companion planting. So let's start with brassica, and these are going to be crops like cabbage, broccoli, kale, and collard greens. Their most common pests are aphids, cabbage worms, white cabbage butterfly, cutworms, flea beetles, slugs, and snails. Their flower companions are nasturtium and marigolds. Their herb companions are sage, dill, rosemary, and thyme. And you can also plant brassicas near alliums, celery, and beets. Additionally, planting brassicas together can be beneficial if you cover the crops. Brassicas do not need pollination to grow, so using insect netting is a great way to manage pest pressure with these crops. Now let's look at tomatoes. The pests that wreak havoc on tomatoes are flea beetles, aphids, hornworms, slugs, and snails. Their flower companions are going to be nasturtium, marigold, calendula, and borage. Their herb companions are basil, parsley, and lemon balm. And you can also plant tomatoes near alliums, asparagus, and beans. Now, when it comes to peppers, the most common pests we are companion planting for are going to be aphids, flea beetles, slugs, and snails. Flower companions are nasturtium, marigolds, and calendula. Our herb companion is going to be basil. And you can also plant peppers near onions, beans, and carrots. And peppers, like tomatoes, are heavy feeders, and we shouldn't plant them near brassicas or corn. Now, squash is a crop that has some notorious pests, including squash bugs and squash vine borers. You'll want to plant your squash near the following flowers: nasturtium, marigold, calendula, borage, and sunflowers. And the following herbs: mint, dill, oregano, parsley, lemon balm, chives. Additionally, indigenous American populations planted squash alongside corn and beans in a companion planted method called the Three Sisters. With this method, corn stalks acted as a natural trellis, and squash acted as the ground cover, keeping the soil warm. Beans ultimately provided soil nutrients. So the last main crop we'll discuss in this episode is potatoes. And potatoes deal with the Colorado potato beetle, aphids, flea beetles, and leafhoppers. Their flower companions are nasturtium, petunias, alyssum, tansy, and marigolds. And cilantro is an herb you can plant with potatoes. Additionally, you can plant them near alliums, beans, and radishes. Now, as an aside, tansy is a great companion, but it's considered invasive in some areas and not permitted to be grown. Now, I know we only talked about a few of the combinations that are possible, and there are countless more main crops and herb flower combinations that can be used. Because this is such a vast topic, I created a printable companion planting chart that offers examples of companion planting as well as the best companion plants for 13 of the most common vegetables, plants, herbs, and flowers. You can grab a copy of it by checking in the show notes below. And with that, you'll also get access to our other printable resources. All right, y'all, this has been a fun episode. Although it was really hard not to include every companion combination there is. So make sure to check out the show notes to get your copy of our printable companion planting guide, and make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Next week, we're going to continue this companion planting series, and we'll be talking about companion planting with herbs. If you dug this episode, I'd be honored if you would rate this podcast and spread the word to your friends who are also passionate about gardening. Your 5-star support fuels the growth of Garden Things with Friends, and together we'll cultivate a network of thriving gardens and plant-loving friends. Happy gardening, and remember, it's never the wrong time to grow where you are.